In the last lecture, we ended with the way that Trotsky versus Stalin in the Soviet Union and the way that Stalin consolidated power and, through very harsh means, but effective means, was able to industrialize the Soviet Union and prepare them for the Nazi Germany onslaught of World War II. And by the way, let's keep in mind that Stalin defeats Hitler, not the United States. Remember, in World War II. Oh yeah, you forget about that, right? It's not often talked about. And I believe that Stalin made Man of the Year around there, but it might have been before that. But I think after. If you want to know why a lot of people took to Stalin, you'd be surprised how many artists and writers and other people celebrated Stalin, when now almost everybody would never it's not popular like Stalin now, but he defeats Hitler, and that gives him cred. And as a political system, that's the alternative to capitalism. World War II, and we'll go back to this, really does a boost for communism in the Soviet Union in those terms. They take a really heavy hit in World War II. Actually, the majority of casualties, almost half are going to be Soviet citizens. We'll talk about that later, but keep this in mind. In any case, if you saw the movie Frida, and if you know about the artist Frida Kahlo, she did have an affair with Trotsky. Trotsky, here when he's younger. Later, he fled Stalin. He lived with her and her husband in Mexico as an exile. She did have an affair with him. Oh yeah, there's his wife. Awkward. And Diego Rivera, he painted communist themes into his art. Here's Lenin unifying all the workers. This is Trotsky here, Karl Marx and Engels, it looks like. But then, oddly, they were accused of possibly being collaborators in the death of Trotsky. That's not portrayed in the film. By the way, Trotsky does have an ice pick put in the back of his head by a Stalinist agent in Mexico. And Frida Kahlo has this self-portrait with her, with Stalin. I'm just throwing that out there. You can think about all that. We're going to move on. Okay. Nationalism and anti-colonialism in Africa. I mainly just want to mention that Africans, just like the rest of the world, that were not European or American, viewed the Treaty of Versailles as hypocrisy and betrayal. And as you see, look at all of Africa as pretty much under some European power. Belgium, Congo, French control over here, French, Portuguese appears going to be like British, on and on. French, British, Italian, right? Okay, so just keep that in mind. Marcus Garvey, I just want to briefly say something about. He created the Universal Negro Improvement Association. He went to Africa for Africans. This is 1920s. His outfit is... This is some sort of fantasy. I don't know, fantasy. Many even African Americans at the time thought he was a little bit of an odd character, maybe even silly. And he ends up being deported by the United States for some sort of economic scandal. Maybe it was politically motivated in terms of. And what was the real reason why he was deported? That's another debate. In any case, I just want to point out that whatever people think of him, he had heavily influenced, and still does, black nationalism. So the Nation of Islam, the followers of Farrakhan, black Muslims, not meaning just black people who are Muslims, but specifically the Nation of Islam, heavily influenced by Marcus Garvey. The Rastafarian movement, to worship Haile Selassie, the last king of Ethiopia. I mean, Bob Marley talks about, we'll never forget no way they crucified Jesus Christ. We'll never forget no way they sold Marcus Garvey for rice. It's even the lyrics of Bob Marley. So you have characters like him that are going to be very influential developing at this time. He was anti-communist. In his own writings, he explained basically that he felt that they didn't address the needs of African Americans, of black people. Okay, and I just mainly wanted to point out that everybody had to address the communist question at that around this time. Okay, so what about back in the Middle East? Well, we talked about the demise of the Ottoman Empire as one of the results of World War One. And we saw in 1919 to 1923 there was a Turkish nationalist revolt, which helped create the Republic of Turkey. And this man, which I'm going to end up sending you a documentary on at some point, and you're going to see, I think you've already saw a little bit clip about him about in my history lab. He is a really interesting character. So here's this guy who comes from an Islamic nation, who led the Islamic world, the Sunni world, in the Ottoman Empire, and he completely westernizes it. He actually makes it illegal to write an Arabic script and changes Turkish to Latin style letters. So if you look at Turkish today, there's not written in Arabic script. Turkish never was a Semitic language or Arabic, but it was common for Islamic countries to use the Arabic script for their language. And he reforms that. He makes everybody dress Western. He does. He basically promotes secularism within Turkey. And to this day, the military of Turkey promotes Ataturkism. It's even like a thought, Ataturk thought. Okay, to rise up a really strong Turkish nationalism that basically demotes Islam and relegates it to the private sphere. Okay, and there's a conflict within Turkey of different people's opinions about this. Okay, he was seen as a traitor to conservative Muslims, and he still is. Now, he inspired others. So Ataturk also inspired one of the Persian kings, Reza Shah. And in Persia, there was reforms and industrialization, and the country of Persia was renamed Iran, or Iran, in I believe the 30s. I read somewhere by the German ambassador. I need to look that up more. So let's just kind of, if you want to do some research on that, let me know as well. But Iran, or Iran, means land of Aryans. Yes. Iranians are actually Aryans, and many white nationalists actually feel in solidarity with Iran. David Duke, if you knew about him, former KKK guy, he actually often comes to the defense of Iran. Anyways, yeah, and their language is Indo-European. Okay, so the discovery of oil in 1908 by the British obviously also makes some other interests within the region. Okay, so we'll just throw that out there for now. And then Egypt and Syria. I just want to point out that, actually, we'll get back to this one. I'm going to stop right here and we'll talk about this next lecture.